Well, hello there, and welcome back to Mask of the Slasher. Today, I guess I'm in charge because we are talking about a movie that I like a whole biggity bunch, and that is 1986's Manhunter, which was directed by Michael Mann and stars William Peterson, who you might know from CSI, also Brian Cox, who you might know from Succession, and one of my favorites, the Super Troopers.
Yes, the important one, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, we've been talking about Silence of the Lambs, we talked about Long Legs, and Manhunter is based on Red Dragon, which was the first book in the Hannibal Lecter trilogy by Thomas Harris. Of course, everybody knows Silence of the Lambs, and of course there was the Red Dragon that starred Ray Fiennes. I don't remember what year that came out, and Hannibal, which was a terrible movie and a terrible book. So the less said about that, the better. But I don't think too many people know about Manhunter, which is kind of surprising because Michael Mann has directed some pretty big movies. He directed Last of the Mohicans. He also directed Heat, which starred Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. Hoo-ha! And
scare the shit out of me when you do that.
And,
Every time.
So yeah, I feel like it's kind of one of his lesser known movies. He also directed a movie I like a lot that slept on called The Keep, which Tangerine Dream did the soundtrack for, so check that one out too if you ever get a chance. But anyway, Krista, you are not super familiar with this movie, so what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I will tell you. So every time that you've watched this movie, I just happen to come into the room because when I'm not in the room is when Josh watches stuff that I don't really care about.
Right.
I mean, let's just be honest about it. And so when I have just seen this at a glance or whatever, I'm just like, this is the most 80s cop movie I have
Totally
ever
is.
come across in my life. The amount of pastels in this movie is so ridiculous. And this is just a design period that really irks the shit out of me. I remember it very well. My stepmother really loved this stuff. So the pastel, flowery shit, the rounded edge white furniture looked cheap and like you got it at the flea market. Sorry. So I have a dumb hang up. I got that. I understand that. But it's hard for me to get past. So when we finally watched it today, I forced myself to get through it. I did have to laugh at some points because it's kind of corny to me.
It is. There is some corny parts. It's definitely very much of its time, you know.
Yes.
But what I like about it is the use of color, I think, is something I like a lot about it. And I often wonder if Michael Mann was influenced by Argento at all. I couldn't find anything to that effect, but the way he uses color in some of the camera shots he uses, I've often wondered if he was influenced by Italian movies.
Well, and the fact that the director of photography is Italian.
Yeah.
He didn't. I looked into his past movies and stuff, and he did obviously start with Italian movies, but nothing. It didn't look all giallo-y.
Yeah.
So that's a new word. But you had talked about the color thing, so I looked it up.
Yeah.
Because that's how I roll. Plus, there's a little extra feature on the DVD. Surprisingly, he talks about the color in the movies. That's how it's used and whatever. So, but we've talked about color theory before, and that is, I think it's. I mean, there's like a general basic guideline for each color, but obviously it's more specific to characters.
Yeah.
You had said that Will, whatever his last
Will
name,
Graham,
there you go, Will Graham, there you go. He's always in blue. And before I had watched that extra feature, I had looked up just the meanings behind the blue color and whatever, and I pulled out the words that I thought fit for this movie, because it's a wide range, of course.
Sure.
But calm. And isolation. And ironically enough, Michael Mann used it as a romantic.
Right.
They said that they actually put a gel over the cameras to get just the blue shots. There's a lot of humping scenes, unnecessary humping scenes.
Yeah, there really are.
It has nothing to do with
really
the story.
is unneeded.
And they're really lame.
Yeah, super lame.
And there's like a point where he's just like licking her neck.
Yeah, that part's weird.
Yeah, and
I
I'm
don't
like,
know what's happening there.
She's not a damn Tootsie Roll.
William Peterson, neck licker.
It's
That's
gross,
what
bro.
he's into.
It's gross. So anyway, yeah, so that was his situation. And then you had said about Hannibal Lecter. He's in, obviously, white. He's in a cell. He's in the loony bin. So there's the sterile aspect of it, of course. And that's even played into in Silence of the Lambs, where he's just very clean. He probably has some OCD situations going on. So I'd imagine that this is the same way. But this is the interesting part, because you said it derived from Red Dragon, right? So Red Dragon, obviously the dragon itself, it comes from Asian culture, more specifically Chinese culture. In that culture, white means death. So if you've ever seen like the funeral signs that they'll have, and they're usually next to their caskets or whatever, and it's black writing on white background, and that's because it means death.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting too when I found that out. But it's clean, it's cold, and it's just, like I said, it's just sterile, you know, which is ironic.
Yeah.
As messy as cannibalism can be, you know.
Exactly.
And then red, because the red dragon itself, violence, obviously, and danger, you know, that kind of thing. And then the red dragon itself means strength, power, and lucky. I don't think the lucky part really applies to this.
I don't either.
But, you know, that's what it's a very strong symbol. Red is very strong in Asian culture. And then yellow is just being naive.
Yeah.
And there's only a little spurt of yellow in this, and it's in the kitchen towards the end of the movie.
Right.
But it makes sense because the family that was attacked, naive, obviously, to the fact that somebody had been stalking them and whatever. Now, I don't know how people don't know that. But and then one other one that was brought up was green. There are some shots where you'll just see green through glass block. Oh, it's one of the worst ideas we ever had was glass block. But nevertheless, in the 80s, there was a lot of glass block.
Oh, yeah.
And there was green light shone through it, and it ties into ominous. I'm like, well, that's interesting. It also ties into nature.
Right.
And Bro's house, whatever his name is.
Dollar Hide, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Is on the river.
Yeah.
So that's what I found out about that stuff.
Okay, cool. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Color theory.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing, I mean, obviously, you know, Michael Mann's directing to me is very interesting, again, as far as his use of color, the camera shots he uses. I also really like the performances of in this movie. It's kind of interesting to see someone other than Anthony Hopkins play Hannibal Lecter. And I like Brian Cox a lot. I think he's great. I've always liked him in a bunch of different things that he's been in. I never watched Succession because it just didn't interest me, but I think he's a great actor. And William Peterson does a great job in this. You've got Dennis Farina playing Dennis Farina. He pretty much plays the same character in everything he's in, and I like that character a lot. So, always fun to see him in anything, I think. But yeah, I just think there's some good acting in this. Obviously, yeah, there's some cheesy dialogue and stuff, what have you, but...
Well, and Brian Cox, so when, you know, I had read that he was in this, I was excited because I am a fan of Succession because I'm smart. And Super Troopers because I'm dumb. So polar opposites there. But anyway, so when I saw that he was going to be in this, I was like, well, that's going to be fascinating because he's such an intense actor. And I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I have to say it was so weird seeing him young and with dark hair because it's just not what I know.
Right.
But I did look up his whole thing with this role. So he based his portrayal of Hannibal Lecter, which, by the way, only in this movie is there a K involved in Lecter.
Yeah, they spell it different, for some reason.
But everything else it's not.
Yeah.
So I thought that was weird. But anyway, he based it off of, there was a Scottish serial killer back between 1956 and 1958. His name is Peter Manuel, and he killed 7 people, possibly 9. And he was referred to as the Beast of Birkenshaw. And he was the second to the last prisoner to be hung at the gallows there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and he no cannibalism.
Oh, okay.
But I think it was his personality because Brian Cox being Scottish, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he was, he was very aware of that news and probably saw interviews and that kind of thing. So he was basing it off of his personality.
I see.
So there you go.
Very cool.
But I will say I do prefer Anthony Hopkins.
Well, yeah, Anthony Hopkins definitely is the definitive version for sure.
Yeah, he's creepier.
Yeah.
He's more, I don't know, collected, I guess you want to say. And I don't know, there's just something, I was really thinking about it. I'm like, what is it that I don't like about this being Brian Cox? And it just, he just doesn't, doesn't do
it's
it
a very
for
different
me.
take on it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you almost want to see a little bit more of it just to kind of get a better idea of what he can do with that part. Because I feel like
agree.
he's just kind of in it for a second, you don't really get
Yeah, there isn't much, but
as
you
good
know
of a
what?
sense.
Anthony Hopkins is not in Silence of the Lambs for very long either.
True.
I think they said it was like, I don't know, it's within minutes.
Yeah.
And like 7 minutes or something random
something
like that.
Yeah.
So, I think it's one of those things of the less you see, the scarier it is. Because everybody always wants to know these backstories. We've talked about this.
Right.
And without us knowing, it's creepier.
Right.
But I do think when they chose the set design for Silence of the Lambs, it being darker, and more cave-like, and
Yeah.
just, these were creatures in this cave,
Yeah.
as opposed to the sterile, typical hospitalization type situation. So, which is normally green actually, but that's
Right.
beside the point because
Right.
green is calming.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
or it means ominous. So that I don't know which
Yeah.
one you want out of that.
It's an
but
ominous column.
the killer in this, you said, is Francis Dollarhide is the character's name. Yeah. He's an odd looking bird.
He is, for sure.
He's a little lumpy. And I was looking at him and I'm like, you know what? He does remind me of James Gumb,
Oh, yeah.
which, by the way, I still don't understand that
Yeah.
name in Silence of the Lambs. It's
Yeah.
such a dumb name. But anyway, just kind of awkward and high forehead,
Yeah.
just lanky and just weird looking.
Yeah.
So, and you had said that, because I said, what is that scar on his lip? And you said, oh, it's a cleft palate.
Yeah.
And it's not, but it's not a real cleft palate. And
Right.
I'm like, it's strange that they thought that that was necessary
Yeah.
to be in there.
Well, they talk more about it in the book.
Okay.
They talk a lot more about him being self-conscious of it. And also, they only show this for a brief portion in the movie, but in the book, he's got those false teeth that he puts in, and he puts those in so when he bites somebody, they can't figure out,
Yeah.
that he's got a cleft palate. And actually, I can't remember who the dentures belong to in the book, but they go into all that in the book a lot more.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because when they showed the dental impressions, I was like, those look weird.
Yeah.
They don't look right. And those big old incisors,
Yeah.
I was like, those look funky. So I'm glad that those were false teeth.
Yeah.
In the movie, he plays Inagata Devita
Yeah.
by Iron Butterfly. Now, there was a thing about this online, and I didn't even read it. I didn't even care. But I thought it was interesting that it was Iron Butterfly, because a butterfly is symbolic of change,
Right.
as is the moth.
I like that finale with Iron Butterfly. They used the full version, not the single version, which I think is cool.
Yeah, the full, way too long
With
version.
the trippy, bongo solo and stuff.
Yeah, I was like, what is going on with this solo?
Yeah, the real version is like 20 minutes long.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous. Nobody
Especially
needs
for
that.
back then.
Yeah. I mean, Dream Theater songs are bad enough. But I guess back in the day, if you're listening to Inagata Devita, you're probably under the influence of something.
Yeah, probably.
And, the only other time I know that song being used was in Dream Warriors.
Oh.
Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors.
Okay. Yeah, but then of course that kind of ties into the whole soundtrack. Like there's some, there's kind of like some synth poppy sounding songs, but then
Yeah.
also the score itself is synth music, which I always think is cool and very 80s.
It is incredibly
Once again,
80s.
making it one of the most 80s movies there is.
Well, no, I was paying attention to that music, and I was just like, man, this is as 80s as 80s can be.
Yeah. I'm
I
kind
mean-
of surprised you didn't have Tangerine Dream do that one as well.
Did the actual editing and splicing of film needs to not do that ever again, because you would see the jump every
But that
single
was
time.
intentional. The guy talked about that. They had cameras rolling
I
at
know.
different speeds and stuff, and so they did that
I
intentionally.
know, but it didn't look like, oh, this is some artistic thing. It just looked like, why don't you just have the little cigarette burn in
well,
there
they were
too?
trying to be artistic.
They were trying
At
to be,
any
but
rate.
yeah.
Not every,
And then, now this is just me
Not
being
everything
weird and anal. But why can they not wear gloves when they go to and handle any sort of crime scene, anything, any
Yeah.
evidence? No gloves.
Yeah, well, like the first house he goes into, forensics had already been through it.
I know, but it's still a crime scene, so it still shouldn't be touched without gloves on and shoe covers. Because look, he still found evidence after the fact.
True.
So there could have been evidence in the house still too. So I mean, I know it's just a movie,
Yeah.
and it was the '80s, so things like that were not nearly as important
Right.
as they are these days. But I was like, God damn it, just put on some gloves, dude. I know you had some somewhere.
Like I noticed, even in the lab, a lot of times they're not wearing gloves
Yes.
either. Like they're handling everything with tongs and stuff, but
Yeah.
they're still not wearing gloves.
And no hairnets,
Yeah.
no masks, no nothing.
Yeah.
So all that shit just can go right into whatever they're doing. And they're trying to be all precise about putting toilet paper together.
Right.
And I'm like, you're going to get poo particles on it with just your breath. It's just, it's bugging.
Yeah.
Well, and then, like I said, the humping.
Yeah, that was
It just
totally
was
unnecessary.
Yeah, and it took away from the movie, in my opinion. 80s was big on that, though.
Oh yeah, they love to throw in unnecessary sex scenes. For
and they
sure.
weren't like good ones.
No, they
either.
weren't good ones.
They weren't even Skinamax.
No.
They were just boring, rolling around in sheets
Yeah.
and licking necks.
Yeah. Awesome.
Just- yeah.
I'm good. I'm good on that.
No, yeah, it's not good. But here's the other question I had, and we talked about this, is that Francis,
Yeah.
which I think is funny that that's his name, but he worked in a photo lab,
Right.
and the chick that he decides to pick up on who works there is blind.
Yeah.
He takes her to a sleeping tiger.
Yeah.
No explanation in that whatsoever.
Sleeping tiger, hidden dragon.
So dumb. But I did read about the tiger.
Yeah.
It was a real tiger. He
Right.
was under the influence.
Yeah.
He had a couple too many.
File that under things they could do in the 80s that they could never get away
Yes.
with now.
Well, and then the veterinarian that was there is the real veterinarian. They just had him say some stupid line
Right.
poorly.
Yeah.
But then the blind chick's, she's just feeling this tiger, and then she's just like, oh, I'm going to pull his mouth open. So
Yeah.
you can see those big chompers. Now, the only thing I could see with that is, remember I said the teeth, the impression of the teeth,
Yeah.
they had big incisors,
Right.
which tigers have.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Good call.
I mean, that's a stretch.
No, I
really.
think that kind of
Because I'm like, what
ties
else
in.
does this have to do with?
Or like, just kind of tying into that and the fact that foreshadowing that she's in danger,
Yeah,
I think.
and she likes kitties.
Yeah.
She likes to pet her kitty.
Well, who doesn't?
So, I don't know. I think that's how I feel about it. I probably won't watch this again unless you happen to have it on and I
Right.
happen to be sitting there doing nothing else.
Yeah, I watch it every couple years, I mean, yeah, okay, it's a dated movie, it's a flawed movie, but it just has this weird charm for me. I don't know, it's hard to explain. I
Okay.
think it does kind of giallo-y to me, and I think that's probably why I like
that's
it.
probably a big part of it.
Yeah. It's a cult film. Like, it didn't do very well when it first came out, and it became a cult film later on, so.
I'm glad you like this, but keep in mind also we discussed this with the Long Legs, Silence of the Lambs video, that Josh read all the books and
Yeah.
watched these movies probably in the frickin' theater.
No, I didn't see Manhunter.
Oh, damn it. How did you miss that one?
But I will say also, yeah, I've read all 3 books, and Red Dragon was my favorite of the 3 books, so that's probably another reason why I like this one as well.
And I've never read the books. I have no interest in reading the books. I like Silence of the Lambs because it's probably one of the first movies that really changed my mind about horror movies. And Manhunter is not a horror movie.
No, definitely not.
It is a thriller,
Yeah.
detective-y,
Yeah.
giallo-ish.
Yeah.
But obviously they were like, oh, hey, let's just move this into horror when they went and did Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
So I think just Silence of the Lambs for some reason just speaks to me more.
Well, it's definitely a better movie. Let's be honest. Silence of the Lambs definitely a better movie.
I wasn't going to say
it's
it.
definitely a
but-
better movie on all fronts.
Yeah.
Like I said, Manhunter's just kind of like a weird cult movie that, I don't know, it just appeals to me just because it's kind of weird and different. I don't know.
It's kind of like, let's think. Return to Oz.
Yeah.
Not really a good movie,
Right.
but it's freaking weird. And it has a cult following because
Yeah,
of that.
exactly.
So I'll give you that. Here it is. Here's my gift to
Thanks
you
for that.
of cult moviness and the fact that you can watch it whenever you want. And it's on DVD, and I don't have to be around to watch it.
That's right. It's out there on
Yay.
streaming too.
Oh, well.
I think it's on Amazon or something.
Probably.
One of them.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere. There's a lot of crappy movies out there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would just say give this movie a chance if you like things that are just a little bit weird, a little bit dated, a little bit funky.
Nostalgic.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I saw it when I was young, so I'm not sure. Since it does feel kind of dated and it is kind of a flawed movie, I don't know how much as an older adult if you're going to be able to just kind of get into it. But if you like giallo, if you like 80s, stuff like that, 80s cop movies, stuff like that, I think you should give this movie a chance because it is kind of cool and different and weird and flawed and, endearing all at the same time.
Maybe that's what it reminded me of was Lethal Weapon. You've got I almost said Mel Brooks. Mel Gibson.
That'd be a whole different movie.
That'd be a weird movie.
Mel Brooks and Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, Mel Gibson, his characters, I'm so beat up.
Yeah.
My last job really got to me.
Yeah.
I'm an alcoholic on the beach.
Yeah.
And so is this man.
Right.
Drinking a big old beer stein of beer. It's just like, how big could this thing be? He's really just hammering it down. And he loves his short shorts.
Oh, he dares wear short shorts. Pink
Yes.
short shorts.
Yes. There was probably a lot of nair
Thinking
going
about
on.
getting a pair of those myself now after rewatching this.
I think you should. I think you should. I think the neighbors would appreciate
Mow the
it.
lawn in those bad boys.
Yes. Woo. Oh, yeah. Anyway, like Josh said, go check it out if you are into nostalgic stuff, especially our age group, 80s. This is like a timestamp of the 80s.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Like I said, all of the furnishings, everything about it is 80s. His weird narrations throughout where he's just talking to himself.
Just you and me now, sport. One hunter. I'm a Viking, damn it.
I'm like, shut up already. We don't need to hear all of your thoughts. My God, I'm surprised he wasn't like, oh, Taco Bell. Shouldn't have had that
it's
for
kind
lunch.
It's kind of interesting that they did it that way as opposed to a voiceover. You know?
Yes.
Because, like, I understand that they're trying to show how he's piecing this together, trying to figure out who this guy is. But I thought it was kind of weird that it's just by, like, him talking to himself and not by, like, when he's doing it into the tape recorder, that part makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah, but just by
But then
himself,
later on when he's just talking to himself.
it's almost like he's talking dirty to himself, too. He's like, oh, you wanted to kill that dog. You know, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's such a weirdo. Just shut up already. And everybody around him is probably like, oh, bro's talking to himself again.
He lost it again.
Yeah.
I wonder who was in they put him in the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, he talked to himself too much. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but give it a chance for that reason. Obviously, I have.
Yeah.
I sucked it up for this video. And there's a lot of movies I suck it up for Josh. And same goes the other way, really.
Yeah.
And I think that this is one of those instances where, you know, I've talked about it through other videos, that people need to give other things a chance. Because you may or may not like it in the end, but how are you going to know until you find out?
Exactly.
You know?
You don't have to like everything, but
You don't have to like everything.
But at least be open to experiencing it. You know what I mean? You
people are
don't have
willing-
to like it. Just give it a shot and see.
People are willing to try new foods all the time.
Exactly.
And there's some weird ass foods out there. But I wouldn't say that like this is a comparison to what is it, Durian?
Durian.
Durian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a comparison to that. It's not stinky. It's just not my bag.
Right.
But yeah, the corny 80s thing. I think this is probably the most 80s looking movie I have seen in a very long time.
Yeah, for sure.
So, anyway, give it a chance.
Yeah.
Give Peace a chance, man.
That's right.
So, and as always, we would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe this video. I can't even talk. We would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to this video. Leave some comments.
Yeah,
let us know what you
Yeah, if
think.
you've seen this movie, let us know.
Yeah. What do you think of it?
Yeah.
I obviously laid it out on the table
Yeah.
for you, and I'm not normally that.
Yeah, we're divided
negative.
on this one, so.
Yes.
Let us
just
know
as
what
much
you
as
think.
these lights. We're divided like these lights. Yeah, we want to know what other people think of this movie. So and obviously we did not give away any of the story in this video. We didn't have to. I mean, it's nothing like Silence of the Lambs in the story.
Yeah, no.
Same character names. There's a lot of crossover characters.
Right.
There's only one actor though that is in all of the movies and stuff.
Barney. Yeah.
So if you remember him in Silence of the Lambs, he is the guard he's a black man. He's the guard, whatever. But apparently he's a lieutenant in this. I missed it.
He's barely in it.
There you go. But I thought it was
It's a blink and
interesting
you'll miss it.
that he ended up in the other.
Yeah, both the other two movies.
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty cool that they did do that. Not that it's necessary by any means.
Right.
Because if you're going to just take out Jodie Foster and put in what's her bucket, Julianne Moore.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's like not a good book. It's not a good movie, Hannibal.
Yeah.
So.
Don't know about the TV show.
Yeah. Don't know.
It's probably corny.
Yeah. Exactly.
So anyway, we'll see you next week. Bye.